sensing and beyond. Okay. So I'd like to start with some of the basics we probably covered last week as to how we get to a sensing level. So, for example, in Aikido, the time to use kacha. Yeah, can I borrow your kacha? Okay. Shift to the other one. Am I okay on that camera?
Yes, you are.
Okay, so we do basic, like, okay. So here it's just a matter of getting people to feel. At first, there's a lot of thinking. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Because the sensei have to look at everything. And I feel her hand, but it's almost secondary. I'm seeing a lot of stuff here. So I get people to settle, try to get a little more feeling. Okay. Feel. So not only do I feel her hand now, like I did before, but I feel the direction and the amount of flow. And then we continue getting people out of this tighter eye level into more feeling. So whatever we would say to them, easy, settle, ground a bit, center a bit better, whatever, to get to a better feeling. In that case of feeling, I felt her body coming around a bit. Okay. And then we continue. A little better, fuller level of feeling. Feel. That case, I could sense now I turned. Before she grabbed, it was clear enough there. A little slow on that one. There. Okay. Easier to move because I'm sort of picking up the energies of her movement earlier. Okay. So we do things like that in class to get you to a more settled level. So for me, settling is the beginning, better settling, the beginnings of entering into a sensing realm. We'll call Bob. Noah, you out there? We'll call you in a moment. So I'd go into blindfold technique. We'll make believe that one here for a moment. There it comes. Cool. So that was a tiny bit of this. Easy, but after a while, blindfold where they would boom. And as I think I mentioned last week, Bob Noah was pretty good at that. So let's call him in. Changing cameras.
Sensei, I don't believe Bob is with us yet.
He's not there. Oh, good grief! What should I do?
Yes, he's there.
Bob Noah, are you there? Here he is, Sensei.
Okay, Bob. There he is. Did you watch the last minute? I can't hear him. Technical.
It's on Bob's side. Just a minute, Sensei.
Unmute Bob.
So Bob, he's coming. Bob?
He's on his way.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, I switched sound systems.
So we just went from getting people to settle and feel more, settle more, feel more. And then I used to realize people, if they couldn't see things, they weren't responding well. So I thought, what should I do about that? How are they going to self-defense in a dark room if they have to see things before they can react? So towards doing a blindfold practice. Now we improved on it. We get them to settle. When they look like they're at that level of feeling much finer, then we blindfold them and have them. I don't know. Could you go through your form of settling to get you to that realm where you could sense the attack? You want to go through that lineage there,
Yes, Sensei.
pattern?
Basically, what you had us do was first feel the attack physically and relax and settle and open just at that level. And then as that got more comfortable and we were ready to move to the next level, that's when you put the blindfold on.
Okay, and your
And at that point,
moving into that level.
process was to drop into a deeper place of center, but then the shift went from the front of the body to the back of the body and began to get fuller and fuller there. And the back of the body has a different way of sensing. And as that got fuller and fuller, it was more than just the physical back of the body, but it was a way of sensing that wasn't relying on seeing. It was more a feeling, sensing, experiencing kind of thing. And that allowed contact with the incoming attack without necessarily being able to see it.
Okay, so again, talking to the audience, did you catch how he's using this back? It's not a physical back, but it, I would think, I could put words in his mouth, it inferred when the back and the area around the back starts to become more alive, it told him he wasn't at this level anymore, this frontal half level. And that level is the beginning of being able to sense the incoming without having to see. You sense it. So back to him was a signpost. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Now you people are still I. Watch out. Oh yeah, I have a back. I'm aware of my back. And that's not what he's talking about. He's talking about a settle where something starts to be there. Yeah. And that level.
Yeah, Sensei, it was definitively different than wondering what's going to happen or thinking about what's going to happen. It was just a sensing feeling, and that was it.
I think we covered it there, but anything to add about, I don't know, the earlier parts of, because they also, we start with the same move, so you can settle with that same move, like me and Katja did. But when we, after, as soon as we put the blindfolds on, also we went into a variety of attacks. So they weren't going to just kata or katate. They may come in with a yokomen. They may come in with a chu, ryote. So you have to really be there with this variety of things that you can't see. And they're being very quiet as they move in. They're not stomping, so you can hear them move and know where they are by their stomping feet. We were very careful there to be quiet. Coming in, yes, with intent, energy, yes, but not giving them any clues. You know, we weren't breathing heavy. Here I go, and stuff like that. So now we're at that level. Any comments there about sensing at that level?
A lot of it had to do with clearing in the sense that with the first part that you worked on with us, where we could feel the attack, see the attack coming, and it was kind of the same attack over and over. then there was a clearing and saying, okay, that may have been how it worked then, but I don't know how it's going to work now until I make that shift. And the shift is what's going to put me in touch with functionality through sensing rather than thinking about it or relying on past experience to tell me what to do.
Yeah, don't go back to the eye that has memories of. It's a brand new game, a brand new realm. I use realm a different way also, but a brand new level. Yeah. Make up your own word there.
And there was a lot of room for progression from that, kind of going along with your 1x1, 2x2, 3x3. You could keep going as long as you didn't get stuck at a particular level.
So even that level of sensing, we would continue going finer with it.
Yes,
Is that what you said?
yes.
And could any examples there of going finer, what you could pick up or how it worked?
Rather than even relying on the feeling of the attacking energy touching me, you could begin to get in touch with the intent that generated the energy. Whoop, we lost the sound.
Sensei, I still hear you. I still hear you.
Okay. Yeah.
Bob,
Now-
Noah.
Now,
Okay.
now I can hear again. Yes.
There we are. Okay.
Bob, I'm not hearing you.
Sensei, you're muted.
I'm not hearing you.
I'm sorry, everybody.
Lost me.
Please stand by.
Okay, lost me for a moment.
I hear you, Sensei. This is Lauren.
Are
You
we-
talk to him.
we-
Bob, you don't hear me,
Bob
huh?
got me?
Bob, you don't hear me?
We hear you, Richard.
But I don't think he does.
I heard you.
Oh, good.
And
Just
you-
ignoring me as usual. Okay, no problem.
Bob's muted again.
Yeah, I'm
Sensei,
not.
you're muted again.
I think you're muted.
This is the
Glass of wine.
teaching without words.
Lauren, I'm seeing Sensei's video under your name.
That's correct. That's
right.
correct. That's correct.
Okay. But so if you mute yourself,
I see. It's all right. Can everybody hear Sensei? Sensei, would you please say hello once more?
Hello?
yeah, so
Yes, but
you
his
can't
volume-
mute yourself.
When he's
Okay.
off mute, we can hear him, but his volume is quite low.
All right. So I think we figured out the muting problem. I'm sorry for the operator error on my side. The volume problem, we don't have a solution for until maybe next week. So please continue, Sensei. Sorry for the interruption.
Okay. Yeah. Um, so anyway, he could very early pick up the angle of the attack. I mean, it wasn't like 6 inches away. It'd be much earlier, and he'd already be starting to move into a harmonizing location. So, if we were to continue along there, probably he picked up, or you could pick up as your sensing level is better. The intent, as soon as they turn and look at you, you pick up energies coming in at you before they start to make their move. So finer and finer. Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Sensei.
Yo. Gotcha. You sit here. Okay. Here's a dumb practice we used to do. Okay. To start to get people aware of energies coming at them. Again, we want them, at first you're trying to think about when I'm going to strike, which is kind of dumb because I don't know when I'm going to strike. Okay. So we would have our students sit, another student behind them, and to make it clearer and easier to not look, to pull any energy I have about kacha or hitting kacha, I pull that off. I'd be like clear over here. Okay. And then there'd be a sense of kacha. Okay. And a sense of it. You don't have to move. Okay. And then again, you know, and she's settling. Well, and again, I pull off the energies, try to clear here so I don't have anything seeping at her. And make it easier. Don't want to confuse her. And then again, going from clear to kacha to hit. Okay. And so we do that for quite a few times in a row. And after a while, again, the people got pretty good. Let's see, I can't trying to remember. Right there. Maybe we would have a move. I don't recall now, but probably, yeah, we did. Yeah. Because I remember some people, if you look at them, they start to move. And you say, okay, but see if you can pick up the intent thing. You want to play gotcha? I'll play with you. This is fun. So eyes closed, relax. A little slow. But so you expect that. You expect to think, I think it's coming and you move, and I'm still clearing over here. But as you settle more and more, one problem is when you look at them, put them in your sight, a lot of people start to move then. It's not wrong, okay, but just to distinguish between being looked at and being struck at, okay? Anyway, it was a fun game. Thank you. And again, always that settling, okay, to get you to a better level, okay? So you can go, so again, using settling, feeling, and then you begin to move into this sensing zone, okay? And sensing at first is feeling, so sensing and feeling. I don't have, well, here, I think we tried to picture it a bit. Okay, first using settle to a feeling zone. Can you see that? Remove that. I don't know which way to move it. I'm backwards. There it is. Okay. So settle to feeling, and then we said, okay, now sense, but there'd be a feeling sense. Feeling, you'd feel things then. And so feel and sense can be close together for a while. As you continue, potentially, depends on the case, the situation, less feeling, much more sense feeling. So I'd reverse the word and reverse a sense feeling. Okay? Whatever that means to you. All right. What else did we used to do? There was another one. Katya, can I borrow it for a moment? And this was trying, sitting in here. we'd have somebody sit down on the mat, and we'd have a group, the student body, and we'd be 15, 20 feet away. They're sitting there, settling, quieting down, whatever, and with their eyes closed. And I would signal the group. We didn't make any noise or talk. I'd signal the group. We pour energy at the person. And then we very slowly, quietly move it closer, still trying to put some pressure on them, so to speak. Okay? Quiet. Until we got, again, remember we started 15, 20 feet away at least. And then very slowly, step at a time, boom. When we got fairly close, they could really feel that. It was like touching out her head. Was that an agreement? It's just me. It's not a group of people here. Okay. But she's a sensitive lady. She's already picking that up. But you should see what it's like or feel what it's like when you got 15 people around you, flowing at you, coming in closer, flowing at you. It's like, wow. For example, I had one guy, he was a Buddhist priest, so you figure he's pretty cool. So here comes the group closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. We get fairly close to him, and it's so oppressive to him, it's so strong that he started to lash out. Now here's this nice guy, Buddhist priest, and he's lashing out. The pressures were kind of strong. So by feeling that, I think that's it, thank you. By feeling that, they could, it was very clear to them that energies, intent, stuff like that, is a something. They could feel it thing getting thicker and heavier. They love the game. One of my senses as a martial arts teacher was if someone's really gunning for you, they really want to get you, they're throwing out a lot of energy at you. And I wanted them to sort of recognize that, for lack of words, oppressive energy coming at them. And so I would tell people, don't worry if your friend in screwing around is hiding behind the door and you walk in and he touches you and you didn't feel anything. There's no aggression. There's no there. Okay? So it won't work for your buddy. If I'm in a bookstore, kneeling down looking at a book, and somebody puts their hand on my shoulder, I don't panic. I figure it's somebody I know, because if it was somebody who was going to punch me out, I'm pretty sure I would feel that coming and definitely feel it by the time he's touching, or I shouldn't be, in martial arts. I should be someplace else. Anyway, to give the people the feeling of what energy is coming at them strongly are like. So it's a feeling which can bring them to more sensing. Yeah. And I think, Noah, are you still there?
Yes, Sensei. Yes, I'm still there.
Didn't we used to do practices like where we would just have somebody sit quite a distance away from us, and again we would avert any energy to make the game clearer, and then suddenly look at them and just you kind of thing, that in energy, you, not verbal, of course. And that I expected the receiving students to pick that up, to know, oh, now he's looking at there. Didn't we play those kind of?
Yes, Sensei, we did. We had these benches around the mats, and you'd have people sit on the bench, and then somebody on the other side of the dojo on the other bench, and we were expected to be able to pick that up.
Everything else, you should be able to pick that up with.
Yes,
Settle then.
yes.
And so a great example, I may have mentioned this one before, but it fits in here well. Me and my right hand at the time, Alan Grove. Most of you don't know him because after he was in Aikido and was teaching, opened up a school in Oakland back in the day. He moved back east someplace. Probably passed on with a heart attack or something. Anyway, we were driving a car in a main intersection, San Antonio Road, I believe, which is heavy duty, shopping centers, a bunch of stores, busy corner. I think a minimum of 3 lanes, maybe probably 4 lanes, or 4 lanes. I mean, a big intersection. We saw one of our students walk the crosswalk across the street, and we're back a few cars, but we just, hey. Now this is high noon in a busy intersection. She stopped, turned around, looked all around, didn't see anybody or anything, and continued walking. But this is high noon in a busy intersection, and we just went, lady. And she stopped and turned. I said, yes. So and in some of the games we have trouble because there's something about if someone's really going to do you in. There's something about that kind of energy that's very strong, and in playing games we can't quite duplicate that intensity of I'm going to kill you, asshole. Yeah, I think I may have mentioned the story. There was a well-known martial arts guy with his name right now. He was also a Green Beret or one of those outfits, and they realized in practical purposes that when they made an approach on the sentry to knife them and take them out, that they couldn't just sneak up and approach him. He was getting nervous. And they found it very difficult, or if not impossible, to do that. So it's different than the movie. So they learned, I believe, to keep their energy back. They wouldn't zero in on the sentry. They'd head towards him, but they wouldn't beam towards him. And when they got close enough, then they unbeam. But they realized that they were saying, I'm going to get you, that he would get twitchy. He do that. So so that was just more proof that I was on the right track with how I was laying things out. I think the different forms, ways that you settle, okay, could be important. Susan, are you on? Huh? If you're driving, pull your damn car over.
I'm here.
Ah,
I am here.
so we can't see your face in this case?
You should be able to.
I don't see your face. There she is. Okay.
Kenny, let me do this.
Yeah, we're fine. You hear me okay, Susan? We're on?
I can. Yes.
Okay. So, let's see, Susan, physical therapist of well-renowned. We'll get into how she senses her client. And she's that's where she's well renowned. She sees things and can do treatment with them better and surprising to her coworkers. So, Susan, what's your settling down pattern when you're dealing with a patient?
Like Noah talked about, that sense of shifting from a feeling space to a bigger sensing space. And what's critical for me is that that space is large enough and open enough and deep enough.
Okay, hold it
The
there.
depth is really critical.
Okay, so certainly with a sense of space that's deeper and open or clear, empty, so you can fit into it, into this more open space. Okay. And
in that space, I find that people are much more able to open up, and not just the presenting problem, but what's behind the problem, what's under the problem, starts to surface more and more.
okay, so you're in a sensing space already. Yeah. You've got your
Yeah.
patient there. And there's something about the relationship
Yes.
where their systems talk to you. I don't know if I put words in your mouth, you talk to me.
Yeah, no, that is correct. People are sometimes surprised that people say what they say to me, and they'll ask, well, how did you get them to say that? And it's not that I'm prying or pushing or pulling information out of them. It's the space opening up, and that story comes through.
So their system, you approach them and you're clearer and clearer and more settled. There starts to be some type of relationship or connection or communication. And so they'll begin to tell you things. I remember you telling me, because I checked with her before Friday here, and she was telling me about a mother who, the mother child, I'm
Yes.
surprised she said that much to you. What, you want to tell us that one quickly there? What mom said?
It was kind of a complex problem that the child had that they were sent to me for. And it took a couple sessions, but the child eventually told me much more of the story. And the mom was surprised because she had taken the kid to multiple psychologists who never got that story out of the child. And again, it wasn't that I was prodding or pulling or interrogating. It was simply opening that space. What's that?
You didn't Nikyo her.
No, I did not.
Get her.
Yes.
Okay. And probably Patrick could jump in on this one too. How to be there with somebody where you're touching them deeper and they begin to catch it and they're coming back with a deeper answers or a deeper, better presentation of their problem or their history or whatever. And there apparently the mother was surprised that Susan was able to get so much as child was laying it all out for her. And mom had never seen this little girl do that before. How to be there so that the person feels what? Safe, connected with, included, whatever words you want to use. Yeah? That's basically.
And sometimes if I make the error of shifting to an I, so perhaps there's a bit of the story that comes out that might trigger an I response, but that's not the same as sensing feeling, because suddenly the space isn't as big, the story isn't as clear, and the system can almost shut down. Whereas with that big open space, the system really wants to talk, it wants to share.
So to paraphrase her, she's laying out you're sensing, because you're sensing, she's laying out her story better. But in what she said might trigger something. Oh yeah, that was like this other client I had, or whatever, and you start to eye it, and she's saying it's gone. So you remember we talked about how an experience sends a message to the eye, and I last week called that an example would be a book is an experience, and right away there's a library card about the book, but it's not the book. And you can't read the library card about the book. It only has 1 or 2 lines max. Only the book is the book. So that's what we're talking about here, yeah. Now, in sensing clients where they don't know what's wrong, now you're into more sensing. How do you know you're into sensing, talking to their system, or where their system is going to tell you what's wrong? That thing that makes you special, different than the other PTs.
I think again, the clarity of size, being centered in the space, in the size, and allowing that story, and whether it's a verbal story or the physical story of the system that I'm touching. And some of my checks for myself that I am staying open are when either I say something that I wouldn't have thought of, or perhaps my hands go somewhere where I wouldn't have expected to start working on that person.
Okay. Is that a little bit level? I want to go to a finer level than that, but that level, she's saying when she's at a certain level, she's surprised at what she says to the client, or where her hands go to work on the client. Okay. I want to go past that level. Okay. So that's a big now, client doesn't know anything about themselves. That's why they're there. They don't know what's wrong, but something's wrong. Now you're dialoguing with their system. So it's not a word thing. Our words, you're not talking human words to a human person. You've acknowledged their system. And now you're going to begin to dialogue with their system. And their system is, I surmise, going to tell you what's wrong. We're there now. That
yes. That is correct.
Flavors feel.
For me, it is often a wordless place. So I probably will not have words in that space, but things are being said or communicated between the systems, but it's not a word place.
Okay, so there's a communication going on. You sense that with the client system. But
yes.
Pardon me. But you don't hear words. How do you pick up what's wrong with their system? In what form do you pick that up?
Feeling and sensing.
Okay,
there may be
words. Is it just? I mean, they got a spine that's a little weird, never been seen by doctors before. Do you feel a weird spine, or do you feel something? I just want to make the word feel. Sense feel. I'm just looking for a little easier way of presenting sense feel, so our Zoomers don't misunderstand and think they have to feel what the client is feeling. That's
okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's bigger than that.
Watch out for bigger, because then they're gonna go out there. I ain't going there. What does bigger mean?
Well, remember I said
They go, oh,
I have
bigger.
to be grounded,
Grounded,
but
you're
you have to be,
present.
yeah. I have to be grounded. So there may be an intensity of the feeling that is possible from that level of grounding.
And I'm just asking about how that communicates. That's all I'm asking.
Oh, how it communicates?
Yeah, I'm trying to help the Zoomers get a sense of how to sense, of how they may sense based on how you sense. Not that they have to do it exactly the same way, but just to give them some clues about the sensing communication. How do you know they're screwed up physically?
Say that again?
How do you know they're screwed up when you're sensing them? How do you know where they're screwed up? How do you know what's causing them to be screwed up? You've done this before, so I'm just asking for words.
The system tells me where, and there's a sense of the story behind it.
Okay. Now, again, how do you pick that up? Is it images?
Yes.
Do you? Okay, images.
Yeah. And it may be a physical feeling. It may be an emotional feeling. It may have the sense of a memory.
So you feel that they have an emotional thing in there.
Yes.
Just trying to get the Zoomers, is that okay? People that watch us, to try to get some different ideas, different examples of communicating at a sensing level. That's all I'm going for.
Are you doing the director?
Okay.
You're moving the
Anything to add in before we move on?
So, Lauren, should I eat or what were you going to do? You're coming in.
We lost you, Susan?
I'm here. Nothing to add right now.
Okay. You did mention, we were talking before this session, and you did mention the early stages that you picked up something when I was we were playing with feet, and I said something like, "What's behind that? What's the more of that?" That here's the strike. Now, what's the more of it? What's the next of it? What's the not next of it? But where'd that come from? Something that you remember we were talking about that for a moment?
I do, and that has something that has always is always part of what I do that you brought out. It's what's behind that ski, what's behind that attack, what's the more of it, what's the behind, because I find that there's often more of a story, and I have to open and ask that question of what's the more, and I have to be willing to open up to what's the more. But once I do, it shows up, and the system wants to talk about it.
Oh, that's important. Systems want to talk. Whatever the system is. Here we're talking about a human body. But system, there are many forms of it. A horse whisperer, because the horse wants to talk. But you have to know when to be able to ask it questions to draw out a clearer answer, or for any clarification. you sense something, but you're not quite sure. So you say to that system, whether it's a horse system, a dog system, a plant system, whatever, a character that you're making up to put in a movie or in a book, and you're asking the character to dialogue himself, to fill himself out. So he's a better character in the movie. So all those are basically the same thing. And by questing for more depth, is that okay, Susan? Questing for more depth, it will respond. Yeah. So, yeah, what's behind that you said? What's the more of that you said? Okay. Thank you, Susan. Yeah.
Welcome.
How we used to play or start this in a simple form was we'd have people do a movement on the mat, and the rest of us would watch. And I'd say to the students, okay, what's the obvious? Well, it's obvious when Uke steps in, Nage is stepping back. That's very obvious. Okay, and I say, okay, now what's not so obvious? And we'd watch the same move, but they've settled a little bit. What's the not so obvious? And I don't know, maybe you see something, for example, I'm making up stuff now. For example, he kind of gathers himself before he steps in. And Uke is getting a little twitchy, feeling that, whether they do it consciously or not, before they step back. That there's little before they step back. So there's something, an energy going on back and forth. That's the not so obvious. We'd hang out there for a while, a minute, whatever. And then the not so obvious was the obvious. Now you can all see that little energy pick up and then that little energy twitch. Okay. Now that's obvious now. Now what's the not so obvious to move them into another level of sensing? Did I say that okay? Did I come across okay? Noah says it's okay. You all right? Danny, did you pick that up? Just look at me, Danny. That's not me. I'm over here. There you go. Where is? I lost it. There he is up there. Okay. Anyway, so obvious, not so obvious. This is a fun little game. If you want to practice, for example, go to the park. Watch people jog. Go someplace where there's joggers going by a lot. Watch him jog. At first, you'll see the obvious. Oh, he's jogging. Okay. Now, settle a bit. What's the next level? Okay, he's still jogging, but he looks kind of smooth. Oh, this guy's jogging, but he looks kind of a little awkward with his body or something. And there you practice, and you keep settling, and then you begin to see better and better levels. And after a while, you say, oh my God, some joggers shouldn't jog. They're obviously hurting themselves. And others are like, wow, that's beautiful. I wish I could jog like that. They're smooth and seemingly light, I don't know, improving along the way. You don't see any impending injuries like some of the people. They're killing themselves. Don't jog. Better you go home and watch TV than do what you're doing. So places to practice for sensing. Real quick, again, if you're Aikido people, you can just keep doing, have somebody do a kata. And again, you see the obvious, and then if you keep settling, you'll start to pick up something else, keep settling. And soon you'll be able to sense this buildup of energy that moves in an already determined direction. Right? But keep settling. Okay? So settling or centering, grounding, opening on your way to a sensing level. Okay. So games, watch the joggers. Okay, here's an easy one. Get a colored piece of paper, a red one, a blue one, a green one, like whatever. Put your hand, left hand probably more sensitive, and just feel. Just feel. At first, you'll make up stories and you don't know and stuff, and you're thinking about what you know about red, okay? And that's not it. It's what are you feeling? What do you feel? And you'll start to get some ideas about something or thoughts about something, or maybe we'll see. Keep feeling. And after a bit, you'll pick up depths of red that are a little bit different than whatever you could think about the color red that you already know about red. Okay. So when you get a sense of red, then you can have your blue sheet over here and then shift to the blue and hang out with the blue for a bit. One thing that should be obvious as hell, at least after a little bit here, is that, oh, blue feels different than red. Okay. Just off the top, the blue, for me, which at early in the game feels cooler. Okay. I don't get any coolness particularly out of red, for example. Shift over to green, hang out there for a while. You might pick up the calmness of green or whatever. But practice, run around, play games. Okay. What other games? There's so many. Make up your own game. Oh, okay. Sensing. Everything talks. Everything in the universe talks. When you identify it now, when you Susan used the word to me the other day. It was a good word. Acknowledge it. There we go. When you acknowledge something, that you're starting to line up to it. You acknowledge it. Very soon, in a better level of sensing, it begins to talk about itself. Okay? You can ask it things about itself. It'll retort back. Okay? You won't hear it heavily in your ears, but in some way, if there's anything not clear, you can ask it for more clarity. Once you get that line going, anything and everything talks. Okay? So that's why we have horse whisperers. I had a period in my life where I was a dog talker. They talk. And they call me, people would call me because they're having trouble with their dog. And I'd sit with the dog, and I don't remember what I did a lot of years ago, but I just say, hey, what's up? And we'd begin to, once I acknowledge them, and at that level, we'd begin to communicate. But I remember one dog bitching. The people who owned him knew he was upset about something or other, and he was acting up a bit. And so I was talking to the dog, and the dog was bitching because they had put this electric collar, a zapper, where if the dog does something wrong, you zap them. Well, he caught that this zap and the owner were connected, and the owner was zapping him too often. And the dog was getting pissy about that. He was starting to get hurt. So anyway, to communicate. Oh, that was fun. I should have stayed in that game. I could have made a lot of money. Anyway, okay, some of you, where to practice. One thing is things that are sort of natural for you or that you like. Some of you like household plants or plants, and you already have a certain degree of relationship. Oh, my plant needs water. Well, maybe just because you see the leaves are drooping or whatever, but it's starting. Okay, so if you like plants, sit with a plant and begin to play this game. Acknowledge it and keep settling and play this game, and you should be able to pick up that there is a communications capability. Okay, now again, careful of what you know. That'll get in the way. Let go of that. Start fresh or something. Okay. Plants talk, dogs talk, horses talk. Characters that aren't full characters yet are makeup. They talk. Okay. In fact, this has happened to writers. I remember reading where some writers, a character they were writing, and one of the characters in their book would start to get bigger and want to do more. And they realized that was happening, and a lot of the writers crushed that character. I would have gone the other way around and say, hey, character, you really got a lot to say. Okay, I'll listen to what you have to say. Maybe he was presenting a whole new book that he'd be the star of. I don't know, but I thought they were too fast on crushing him. But the point was, a character was beginning to talk, and the writers were aware that the character was pushing on them. Okay, so everything talks. Everything talks. The creation is built up out of intelligence, and in intelligence also is communication with itself. Okay, back to Noah again. AIDS. Back in the day when AIDS, we just heard about AIDS. We didn't know anything about AIDS, but it started to make itself known. And me and Bob were sitting in a coffee shop, and for practice, I said, Bob, settle. Tell me about AIDS. What's your sense of AIDS? What does AIDS say to you? And I forget the details because that's been many years ago. But he just did that basic settling, sensing practice. And he started to talk about what AIDS was saying about itself, and a little bit how it worked and stuff. For a while, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever was there. And some of the things Bob said about AIDS divulging itself, talking about itself, 6 months later, a year later, these things were being known by the research departments. But he was calling this off when we didn't know nothing about AIDS. Nobody knew anything about AIDS. And he was already laying out a lot of ways that it operated that was proven 6 months later, a year later, and more. Okay? Everything talks. Do you see the possibilities here? If you get into sensing and you have and again, you find those things that are easy for you to start with, then God knows later what you potentially have a connection to. See, we don't really know totally who we are. So you may have a relationship with something that's natural for you. Maybe you've done it in a past life, but it's just there for you. But again, to make it simple, start with something that's obvious to you. Like you like plants? Oh, why don't you hang out with a plant and spend an hour just hanging out playing this game of you talk, I listen. I say hi, what do you say? I just settle and sense. Just play the game to get it going.
Sensei?
If we had more time, I'd like to get into the possibilities. Here's an ability I think virtually everybody has, unless they're uptight, and to keep it simple, and I won't use the word be psychic. We don't need that word. This is a natural, the ability of sensing. I mean, look at Yoshika. Oh, the squirrel was looking at me, and I jumped in and said, oh yeah, I remember when the pigeon was looking at me. I mean, there's no big deal here. It's sensing. Okay? But for some people, it just happens at a moment, and then it's gone, and they don't know what to do with it. So I'm telling you, if you're interested, practice with something. Practice feeling a color. Practice watching joggers. see what you feel about that, then what you sense feel, see the obvious, and then not so obvious. And when that's sort of comfy, now that's obvious. What's the next? Not so obvious. You practice if you're interested, but this is an arena that humankind hasn't really caught. We know there are special people. Some of the geniuses do this, but it's not like known for the general public. Okay, what if we had at the beginning of school a person, a teacher or a person that could sense through the child the more of the child, you know, and then they'd make a note. Oh, this kid has a writing capability, because that kind of information is fairly easy to pick up. It's kind of a basic putting a touch on a past life thing, for example. And knowing that, then as a kid goes through his different classes, every teacher knows he has a writing capability. So they help him out more, they expect more in a positive way, and bring him to fruition, bring him to whatever. Sorry, use dumb stories like my counselor at JC when I went for a short period of time, saying, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up or whatever? Oh, we need engineers, he said. Ain't no way I could be an engineer. No way. So to defend myself, I said, I don't know. I think I want to teach judo or something. Thank God I had a bit of a sense of myself. But this is in the 50s. There's no such occupation as a judo teacher. But you know, in Aikido, I pulled it off. I wasn't the first full-time Aikido teacher in the States. Right? Likely I was the second. And I pulled it off. Okay, an unheard of occupation in the 50s. Okay. So we don't really know who we are. But if you practice with different things that you like, play. I want to say more about that, but enough, we're running out of time. If you're interested, maybe one Friday we should go over, we're all going to pass on, might not hurt to know a few tricks. Okay, I'm not the greatest expert on it. There's endless books out there. If you're interested, you can read. I don't know of any particular, but I'm sure if you go to some one of the strange bookstores, what do you call them? Yeah, what type of store? Mystic store. Anyway,
Metaphysical
books
and all that stuff. They must have a whole batch of past life kinds of things, passing over, whatever. Anyway, if you'd like one night, we could touch on it. Again, I'm not the foremost expert. I know of it.
And Sensei, if you want to talk to Teja, he's only available for another few minutes.
Teja, you got something else?
Greetings, Sensei. Nice to see you this evening.
Thank you, Bill. Long time Aikidoist, and I can't keep up with his titles lately. Could you tell us your titles?
Well, I'm a lineage teacher as a Renzai Zen Roshi, so that's one of the hats that I occasionally wear, and also along with having the privilege to teach Aikido from time to time, I teach meditation. I'm a meditation teacher, a lineage Dharma teacher, and teach Qigong, as I've done all along for these many years. So
he has a big audience in China. He's on Zoom at least once a week with a big Chinese audience.
Yeah. So what I was thinking is, you know, I have a few things I'd really love to share with our community, and it might be better to save that for another day. I think the richness of what Susan and Noah brought out tonight in your interaction with them was really brilliant. It feels pretty full. And I have a lot that I would also like to contribute if I could, but maybe another time when we have a little bit more time to unfold that.
Yeah. Okay, go. Give us a little something. Give us a taste.
All right. Well, in that case, we were talking about process, weren't we? And process in terms of working with this direct knowing, as you're talking about, is not a linear process. It's kind of circular, or for me, it's a circular or spherical aspect. So when we do the practice if I'm in relation, it kind of depends on what hat I happen to be wearing at the time. But you know, this idea that is not an idea of relaxation and unwinding is not just a physical thing. It's the unwinding is a systemic letting go. So the detail that I think I would add in here is that it is not so much about knowing something cognitively. As we practice this settling and moving from like a 1 to a 2 to a 3, this particular kind of lineage of practice, we're dropping down into a field of knowing, into this kind of sensing that is before cognitive knowing. So when I was listening to Susan talk, I was really enjoying listening to her talk about it and appreciating the struggle that she has with articulating direct knowing. So she's talking about knowing things directly, and it's before the filter, before mental filtering. So it's this direct knowing that you come to know and to trust out of your experience. So that's, I think that's a little piece of it there, you know. So there's alignment, there's connecting with the breath, there's silence, and all these things that we could unpack more.
Yeah, let me jump quick there. So we're talking about this basic settling, if you would, process to get to a certain level. And so again, that's an honesty factor. If you're still busy thinking, you can't say, okay, now I'm going to sense. You're too far away.
Indeed.
Settle, feel. I mean, just feeling myself breathe a bit deeper tells me I'm a bit closer. I'm not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's not something about it, not fuller present enough. But it tells me I made a click. It's a road sign. I have my own map. And as I continue, the breathing system is changing quite dramatically, really. Yeah. And it feels quieter and calmer.
Yes, it is.
That clues me, and I'm close. Close. Easy. And then whatever subject, object, thing I'm dealing with. Yeah. I'm getting close to where I can check it out and see if I'm there yet. Is that?
I think that's well said and well articulated too. It is a relationship. Like as I was listening to both Bob and to Susan, I was really appreciating how Susan talked about creating the space. You know, it's when she said big, it's just inclusive. It's direct. She's learned to do that, and she trusts the process. So when we learn to trust this process, we're learning this. It can happen really fast, or you can also take the time, you know, and before meditation or something like that, you're settling, you're breathing, you have a little more time to work on those elements of alignment. It's nice to have the luxury of that time. But when you get good at it, it happens really fast. You don't need to, don't need to take any time at all.
Gigi and I were talking before, and yeah, when you play, after a while, it can get damn fast. It gets so fast now, we were laughing, that if somebody asks us exactly what our step-by-step process is, we generally don't know. I'll go, wait, let me go through it step at a time. Because we reach a place where it's going to zip. Okay. But again, for the new people, don't worry about zip, because you'll zip with an idea. And no, go through the steps. And eventually the steps are faster. Okay, don't you worry about that. Be comfortable with the steps. Recognize the steps. Hang out with the steps for a while. Don't be in a rush. Okay. Yeah, I think we're going to have to finish up. Thank you, Tija.
Pleasure, Sensei, as always.
Yeah, there was more there I wanted to cover also.
Another time.
Bob,
Anything that'll keep you awake tonight? I'm talking to the Zoomers.
Bob, can you hear me?
Yeah.
If I may, can I just do a quick piece of whatever you want to call it, housekeeping? As I understand it, and maybe Mike, you can help us out, but New Zealand switches to daylight savings time next week. So they'll tune in an hour later, as it were, if I have that correct. And I just wanted to give everybody a heads up for that. And Lauren, we should put that on the announcement when it goes out this week.
Hang on. I think it's the opposite way, Richard. We leap forward. So we're sitting now at 2 in the afternoon. It'll actually be 3 in the afternoon tomorrow. So we'll actually tune into Bob's sessions at 12:30 rather than 1:30.
All right. Thank you for that. And then the heads up that in the end of October, actually it's the first weekend in November, we switch back to standard time, in which case we go from this 3-hour to a 4-hour difference again, and you guys will go back to this other time. So it's just for a few weeks. Heads up, we'll try and keep the announcements to include it. Thank you.
Anybody, anything before we close it down here? Questions, problems? Yoshika, anything that's working?
Hi, Sensei. I'm good, but thank you for asking.
Okay. OSensei story? Bob.
OSensei story is always great.
Noah.
Yes, Sensei. OSensei story. Roy Suanaka. Yeah, Roy Suanaka, who's
an Aikido teacher. You don't know him because he Hawaii. I met him in Japan. He's a Yankee boy, so he opened up a dojo in the Southwest someplace. Had a pretty big group, but not related to California group. But anyway, had a pretty big group. Nice guy. Go ahead with the stories.
When he was in Hawaii as a young student, this is 1961, OSensei was there. And he had 2 very interesting experiences with him. OSensei and he were at a party in Honolulu. OSensei didn't really like parties, so he went to his little bungalow in the hotel. And Roy wanted to see what he looked like because he had never met him. So he kind of snuck up and he's in the bushes outside this bungalow looking at OSensei inside. And OSensei called out to him and said, yeah, come on in. Don't stay out there, even though there's no way he could have seen him. And then a couple weeks later, he was at another luau at a big estate in Han.
I just want to do a quick aside to Yoshika. You see, we're almost there. You feel squirrels looking at you. I feel pigeons looking at me. OSensei felt this guy looking at him. We're almost there.
Almost.
He was at a luau with OSensei at a big estate. OSensei got tired of hanging out, so he wanted to walk on the beach, which is nearby. And one of the people said, well, you go walk with OSensei. So he's walking along. Now, Roy was a very accomplished martial artist to begin with before this. Anyway, he's walking along on the beach with OSensei, and he had this thought, I think right now I could take him. And the instant that thought came into his mind, OSensei turned to him and said, those kind of negative thoughts are not good for you. You should not think that way. You should think positively. And he was so shocked, his legs turned to rubber and he actually fell down. It was interesting. He didn't criticize him for thinking bad about him. he told him what he was doing wasn't good for himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a quick one on the OSensei, the top line kendo guys.
Two of the top line kendo guys in Japan, one of them was an instructor to the Imperial guards that guard the emperor. And the other one was one of the best known kendo people in the country, later in the world. And they decided to test OSensei to see if he could really do what people said he could do. And as soon as they walked in the dojo, he already had thrown them. They didn't even get a chance to attack him. They were down. Then they said, gee, I think this guy's real. But these guys were very top of the line. There were two of what were called the three crows in Japan, were like the three musketeers. They were super famous swordsmen. And he threw both of them without them even getting a chance to attack. At the same time, he threw both of them. They couldn't figure out what happened, but they knew they were down.
They're at the doorstep. Okay. Anyway, so I guess enough for tonight. So thank you, people, for hanging out. I hope you get. Yeah, I really would like to say more about this potential descent, and if that, how much could be done with that. The research could be done. God, I'm going to spend a few minutes going over some of that next week. Sure as hell. See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Sensei.
Good night, Sensei. It's wonderful.